Hi everyone, it's Nicole here today with a tone-on-tone pink You Are Loved card featuring Simon Says Stamps and Dies. A lot of the stamps and dies I'm using are from the newest You Are Loved release, but I'm also going to incorporate some previously released stamps and dies with the one sentiment and then the dimensional die cut love. This is the All My Love set and then the Love die. These were released at least a year, maybe two ago. I can't quite remember, but I love mixing and matching. I'm also a huge fan of tone on tone. When all else fails, if you can't figure out what colors look good together, tone on tone is always a great way to go. I tend to be drawn to tone on tone anyway, and so this is just a really fun challenge and a really fun way to create eye-catching, elegant designs. You can see I removed my foam insert from the Misty, and I am using the new background stamp from the You Are Loved release. This is called the Quilted Hearts background. I've inked this up with Simon Says Stamp HOLLYHOCK ink, stamping it on the Simon Says Stamp Cotton Candy Pink cardstock. And I went ahead and left my panel at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, so standard A2 size. And it's a tone-on-tone color. As that ink dries, because it is a dye ink, as it is absorbed a little bit into the cardstock, it's going to fade a little bit and be a little softer than what you see there. But it's really beautiful and a great tone-on-tone effect. I am a quilter in addition to card making and scrapbooking. If you follow me on social media, you may have seen some of my quilting projects. I share some of that there. And so this new Quilted Hearts background is probably one of my very favorites from the You Are Loved release just because of that fact. I've just coated both sides of a piece of fun foam with Stickit Adhesive, and then I ran it through my die cutting machines to make sure that Stickit was really nice and secure. And then I've replaced one side of the adhesive there. I've removed the backing paper and went ahead and added some Orchid glitter cardstock to this, and then I am die cutting the word love from that using that love wafer thin die. I've also taken the largest of the brand new Ornate Love dies. These coordinate with the Ornate Love stamp set, and I've die cut the largest heart from kind of the bottom right of this, and then I've trimmed my background down to 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. And then I've backed that with another piece of cotton candy cardstock, but it's going to be solid, obviously, since we've removed the stamped piece from that. This is allowing very subtle heart design back behind where we're going to apply our die cut sentiment and also our stamped and embossed sentiment strip. I love having a little highlighted area, even if it's very subtle, which it is in this case, because it just provides that little bit of interest to the design. That heart piece that we've die cut can also be used on another project. I did not do an additional card today, but I do kind of have a little scrap file of Valentine's themed things that I'm accumulating already, and I'm going to use those on some additional cards later on. The Stickit Adhesive makes this instantly dimensional. I'm going to choose, I a lot of times like foam adhesive on this panel and then popping it up, but I'm not going to do that today. I'm going to choose to adhere it directly to my pink solid cardstock piece because I have that fun foam already on the die cut sentiment, and it's going to be a little tricky to adhere that if this panel is sticking up with its own foam adhesive. I hope that makes sense. It's a lot easier to attach this fun foam die cut greeting when the panels are fairly flat. There's just that tiny little ridge there where that heart is. Next, I've got another scrap of the same cotton candy cardstock. In fact, I've only used cotton candy cardstock on my card today. The only addition to that is the Orchid glitter cardstock I'm using, but otherwise everything is this cotton candy. We are stamping the sentiment, "You so much," so the greeting will read, "Love you so much," the first part of the greeting here that we're doing. And I'm stamping that with the Simon Says Stamp Clear Embossing ink, which I absolutely love. I know I've probably mentioned that in other videos, but I really, really like this embossing ink. I think it's really nice and juicy, and it holds embossing powders well. I'm going to sprinkle on my Simon Says Stamp white embossing powder, heat set that, and then trim this into a thin strip that I can then trim down and adhere to my card. Now, because it's going to slightly overlap the portion of my dimensional greeting that has fun foam behind it, I'm going to put a little bit of foam adhesive behind this strip. Not where it overlaps the fun foam, but everywhere else, so that it's nice and flush. And it's going to lay really nicely on the card. Plus, it's just going to draw your eye in because it is slightly dimensional. I think this is a really pretty way to add a tone-on-tone greeting to the card, and the glitter cardstock on the dimensional greeting draws your eye into that portion. So let's get started with our hearts. I'm going to start with the second largest heart now from the Ornate Love for embellishing. And I love this one. It's probably my favorite from the stamp set. It's got this beautiful leafy design in it. Again, using cotton candy cardstock, using the Simon Says Stamp embossing ink, white embossing powder, sprinkling this on, heat setting it, and then we're going to die cut this with the coordinating Ornate Love die. And this heart is going to be the next most prominent point, I guess, on the card. We've got the beautiful background, of course, that sets the tone. We've die cut a heart, but it's very, very subtle. But then we've got our big glittery love, which is the main focal point of the design. Next, we're going to have these little layered hearts up to the left. Another little stamped greeting next to that, and then we are going to finish with a scattering of stamped hearts, which I'll show you in a minute. Now, I think the hearts from the You Are Loved release, which is the newest release from Simon Says Stamp, are a little, I call them like little chubby hearts. They're really full. And the hearts in the Ornate Love and the hearts in the Love Messages Greeting stamp set very much go together, which I love because I'm going to mix and match those. I've also stamped the heart, the smallest heart from Ornate Love, with Hollyhock ink on the pink cardstock again, and we're going to layer those right there up to the left of the main part, or the main sentiment of the stamp set. I'm also going to take another phrase from the Love Messages that reads, "I'm much more me when I'm with you," and we're stamping that right above the dimensional greeting. And I'm going to sprinkle on white embossing powder and heat set that. I want to make sure and mention I did stamp this with clear embossing ink twice before adding the white embossing powder, just to make sure that it was really stamped well before adding the embossing powder, so that it stands out against the background. It's kind of not the focal point greeting, but it really ties in to the rest of the design. So I'm much more me when I'm with you, love you so much. It all works together really beautifully. The Love Messages stamp set from Simon that came out with this You Are Loved release, my favorite. I absolutely love it. I think it's fantastic. It works for so many different cards. I've been using it with all kinds of cards. I will be linking to some of those at the end of this video if you want to see this stamp set used in other ways with other products. I can't say enough about it. I really, really love it. Now, these are the other little hearts that I was talking about. These are from the Love Messages that coordinate with the hearts we've just stamped and die cut from Ornate Love. You can see they very much have that same chubby little style, but they come in other sizes. There are not coordinating dies for these, so I was really conscious of lining those up with my Quilted Hearts background, just to make them flow a little bit nicer. And then we're going to stamp those with the Hollyhock ink over our background. I did stamp these twice. A stamp positioner really comes in so handy. I can't stamp without my Misty. I absolutely love my Misties. I have a couple of them, and I use them for everything. Now again, these look really dark. You're probably thinking those don't look like the same hearts in the finished card photos. That's because it will absorb into the cardstock a little bit and lighten, and it'll really flow much nicer with the finished card design. I stamped all 3 sizes of those hearts from Love Messages on my background, just kind of trying to create a nice flow of hearts where we've got the stamped hearts that go into the layered stamped hearts and finally come down to that bottom corner, right corner. I've layered my stamped and embossed heart with the stamped heart from Ornate Love. And now we're adding finishing details. I didn't quite get that heart where I wanted, so I kind of very carefully pried it up. I probably should have used like a undo adhesive remover, but it worked out okay. I'm probably lucky I didn't tear my background and start having a little fit in my craft studio, which has been known to happen from time to time. I'm using the glue tube and the crystal as my adhesive, the crystal katana to pick up these pretty pink Posh watermelon jewels. I don't know what it is, but I'm addicted to jewels all of a sudden again. Pretty Pink Posh has an amazing rainbow assortment of them. I know that there's some other brands that are available. I've picked up a bunch of these. I purchased, I think, every single color there is and love them. I think they're fantastic. Again, I was very conscious in picking a color of jewel that was tone on tone. I want everything on this card to be in pinks. Yes, there's some little pops of white, but everything else is pink. We've got the pink embossed heart, or pardon me, the white embossed heart on pink cardstock, and then we've got some white embossing for sentiments, but otherwise everything is either pink ink or pink cardstock or pink glitter cardstock. And then of course the pink jewels. And I'm going to create a scattering of these all over, and then we're going to glue this whole panel or adhere this panel to a white top fold card base. This is going to tie into the white on our card. We're going to have a nice white border all the way around because remember we've trimmed this down to 4 by 5 1/4 inches. That looks beautiful. Something else I've really been loving is creating a coordinating envelope. So we're going to take that leafy design, kind of medium-sized heart from Ornate Love, and a sentiment that says, I love you, from the Love Messages, and we are going to stamp these on the back flap of a cotton candy pink envelope. Again, pink on pink, everything is pink on pink. We're going to stamp these with the Hollyhock ink from Simon Says Stamp. And I've masked off just kind of underneath that flap there. I just want the heart to be on the flap, not on the rest of the back of the envelope. And that is going to finish off this card and matching envelope featuring Simon Says Stamps and dies, ink, cardstock, all of the things used to create a tone-on-tone pink love-themed card and envelope. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Here are a couple more videos featuring love-themed stamped sentiments that you might be interested in. Thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll catch you next time.